Okay, it says we're recording. Hi, I'm Vance Stevens. I'm doing a presentation tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 19th of April, 2009. And I'm going to be presenting at the PELLTA conference. And this is my presentation. I'm rehearsing it now. I'm planning to record it live tomorrow. But I just want to see how it comes out and sort of get the timing. It's 11 o'clock at night here, and I'm just going to rehearse it. I have 30 minutes for my presentation tomorrow. So when I do this, I'm going to do it using a screen share. And let's see if I just bring my screen share up. Okay, I'm going to share this screen, which should look like this. Okay, so this is how I'm going to bring it up tomorrow. I'm going to have this on the board when I come in, and I'm going to invite people to shoot the QR code that they see there, or to visit tinyurl.com/PELLTA2019Vance. And I'm going to encourage them to have this presentation open on the screen or open on their own devices as they do this. So this is the name of the presentation, Thinking Small, a Case for Social Media Assisted Language Learning. It's given at the PELLTA conference tomorrow in Penang. And as it says here, I delivered it at a panel in Atlanta, and here's more information about that. Okay, so this panel in Atlanta, by the way, this presentation is being recorded in Zoom as I give it. That's the whole idea. And when I make the presentation, I'll post it somewhere in this slide presentation. That's the presentation that if you're watching this, you really should be visiting this URL in order to get all the links that I'll be talking about in this presentation. But I recorded a version of this presentation at the TESOL conference in Atlanta just recently, last March, 1 month ago. And you can see the recording of that version online, and it's also given in a blog post on Learning Together. Learning Together is my podcast. So when I give my affiliation, I usually give it as Learning Together. This is the blog post for the TESOL academic session on small social media assisted language learning. And this is the video. And we have actually all the presentations in that panel are in the video. So this academic session, an academic session at a TESOL conference put on by an interest section, is supposed to help inform people in that interest section of hot topics in the field. And so they wanted to do something on social call, and I suggested they call it SMALL, Social Media Assisted Language Learning. And after showing them some of the materials I'll be showing you today, they agreed. So this is actually one of the first times that an acronym that I've been promoting since 2009 has actually caught any kind of traction. But we'll be talking more about that eventually. So anyway, basically, you can see that recording if you want, but it's a little bit different from this one. That one showed some research that I did on attitudes toward social media by teaching peers of mine, their attitudes vis-a-vis those of their students on social media and its use in classrooms. But this presentation is going to cover some things I promised in my abstract. First of all, I'm going to give an example from a presentation just a couple of days ago at the PELLTA conference, how social media enables practice with meaningful communication by students in a target language, a very good example. And then I'm going to outline my case for SMALL, as I've been making it since 2009. And I'm going to talk about something very important, and that is how teachers can model social media techniques to one another to increase their knowledge and awareness of the affordances of social media. By interacting in their own communities of practice, that's very important for teachers to get the idea through use of social media, how important it is, or how it can be used with students to understand its affordances. And then I promised also in my abstract to talk about some research on on work I've been doing with social media with my students, and things that I learned through experience myself in communities of practice with social media. So taking those topics from the top, I'm going to start with how social media enables practice with meaningful communication in a target language. And I hope by now you have these slides up on your device, and you could even see what the next slide is going to be, what the task is going to be that I'm going to ask people at the conference to do. And that is, I want them to search on Twitter for a hashtag, and the hashtag is GWH narrative 7. Actually, 7 will be a better one. It says 8 here, but you could do either one of those. So I want you to go to Twitter and search on that and tell me what you find there. Now, I would expect some small activity to be taking place in my presentation tomorrow, but I've done the search already here. Here it is. So if I do a search, I find on that tag, we aggregate content that was shown to us by Vivek Mukherjee and Priya Vijay on Thursday at this conference. And what they did was they showed about how they got their students to write imaginative multimodal sequential narratives in which they just wanted them to write some stories, imaginative stories from their own minds and intellect, and then illustrate them with something multimodal, some pictures from the internet, something that's moving. And they asked them to put these small stories on Twitter and tag them with their class tag. So this one is the one for section 7 or class 7. And here are some examples of what the students came up with. Here's one that Venkat says, "When I got to the theater, my friend was drenched with sweat all the way to his toes. Then he slowly reached into his jacket and unzipped it. He was wearing a bomb. I ran out of the theater and then it blew up." And here's the picture of it all blowing up. So another one down here says, "I went to a movie with my friend and the theater exploded. Starting to be a bad day. But now finally I could go home and rest. But when I opened the door, I knew that this day wouldn't be so good because apparently someone was opening the door. It wasn't expected." So anyway, those are just two examples of social, well, those are some examples of something that two teachers here in Malaysia did with their students using social media and getting them to create. Now, I took a picture of their presentation and posted the picture onto Twitter and deliberately used their hashtag, the two hashtags that they gave us. And what that does, the effect that has is that it brings that picture into their aggregation. And what I hope will happen, Vivek was very happy about this. I hope what will happen is that the students will see this and they'll see their teachers in action, their teachers going to an international conference and showing their work, and that will make them feel even better. So this is, this I think, this is a very good illustration of how social media not only provokes creativity, but also how it motivates through providing students with an audience and in a way that obviously only computers can do. So small is about, as opposed to cal, is it's not just what the computer does, but it's what, sorry, it's not about the computer itself, but it's what the computer does, how it helps the students learn a language. And I don't say we teach the language, I say the students learn the language. This will help them, put them in touch with other students and native speakers. So what I'd like to do now is to make a case for small. As I mentioned, I've been talking about small for a number of years. Actually, the story actually kind of starts with Stephen Bax in 2003. I don't have a slide for him, but he started writing back then about normalization of computers. Normalization of computers, computers being the operative word in CAL, computer-assisted language learning. This meant a lot to us when we started talking about CAL in 1988 or something like that, especially in TESOL. Back then we used to call it computer-assisted instruction, CAI. So actually it was in that year, or 1983 maybe. I think it was 1983. We had a symposium in Toronto, and John Higgins suggested that we use the acronym CAL. He didn't like the instruction part of CAI, so he said call it CAL. So that acronym took hold in 2005. Following on Bax in 2003, some people started questioning whether we should use CAL or something else. Some other possibilities are technology-assisted language learning, technology-enhanced language learning, mobile-assisted language learning. Okay, I'm suggesting small social media assisted language learning. Social media enhanced language learning doesn't have the right smell to it. So basically, Mike Levy and Phil Hubbard wrote this article, Why Call CAL CAL? So very catchy title. What they did in the articles, they said at the time they didn't really think it was worthwhile to come up with other acronyms that were supplanting a perfectly useful one that everyone understood what it was about. But they said at the bottom of page 1, I can show you the article. If you click on that link, you'll come to this article. And if you go to the bottom of the first page, okay, the bottom of the first page right there, it says that, what it says on the slide here, CAL may not ultimately make the transition from the pre-network to network-based teaching and learning. That is, the acronym CAL might have to change, or there might be more pressure for it to change once we've gone into network-based learning, which is where we are now. So that's what the social media aspect, how that comes in. Okay, so I started talking about this in 2009 at the TESOL conference in Denver. It was the 25th anniversary of our founding of the CAL interest section. And so I said that this is one of the slides, slide number 8, I believe, in my slide presentation commemorating that event. But I suggested that that social networking is the new front line, and therefore we might be thinking small. That is, thinking catchy, another catchy title here, thinking how we might think more about social media assisted language learning than computer assisted language learning, just if you're looking into the crystal ball. And I wrote a book chapter which was published in 2014, I believe. If you click on that one, that's a link right there. This is what you'll see. It's a preliminary version of the chapter which got published, and you can find here's the actual chapter itself right there. Sorry about that. Okay, so that you click on that link, you can read the chapter itself. But in this version, the preliminary version, which I had online before the chapter came out, I have some thoughts on thinking small, and basically this is a sort of an archive of things that I wrote about small from 2009, 2010, things I was saying about it. Basically, I'm kind of laying claim to the acronym. I'm trying to document the fact that I was using this acronym before other people were. And that's what you see there. And in the next slide, I show some of the things that I document, some just pictures of some of the things that I document there. And we got some feedback. Valentina Dodge said, nice advice from Vance S. Think small. And from a virtual roundtable panel discussion in 2010. So meanwhile, just to do a little finer search in the literature, if you go to Google Scholar, I mentioned it was after 11 o'clock at night here. Search on the string, which you have to put quotes around to keep the words together, social media assisted language learning. If you do the search, if you click there, you'll see the search. Here it is on, if you search on anything before 2009, you find no hits in Google Scholar. Now, if you move that up to 2010, you'll find one hit. So let's do a search. The hit is to one of my articles. I wasn't even aware of it until I found it here in Google Scholar, but some publication in Argentina called Puertas Abiertas published it, and something that I wrote that where I suggested replacing computer-assisted language learning with social media-assisted language learning. And in 2011, if we search Google Scholar for, again, that string, we find there's one additional hit, and that's Karen Maschinter wrote in TESOL Journal a reference to social media assisted language learning, and she cited a presentation that Phil Cousins, Jim Buckingham, and I did in 2010. And if we pop it up to 2012, okay, so let's see what Google Scholar comes up with. I think there's one more hit at that time. An article that I and some colleagues wrote in TESOL Electronic Journal on the Internet column, which I'm the editor of, and about our Earth Day activities. This is something that these colleagues all do every Earth Day. They put together a webcast using their students and getting their students in touch with people all over the world. So anyway, if we go on to 2013, we get a few more hits. But basically, let me take you up to 2013, yes, up to 2013. Somebody in Malaysia, Chua Ki Man, made a presentation at a TESOL conference called Thinking Big on Small, Social Media Assisted Language Learning. So I found this, and I got in touch with him. He's on LinkedIn. So it turns out that he told me that Small had now found its father when I showed him that I had some prior work going back. And but he came up with this independently. So that's good. That means that great minds think alike, as we say. If you want to find out more about Keyman's work, then you can, the next slide will give you links, and you can see a little bit about what he did. He looked at Wiki, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and tried to find learning outcomes for his students. So that's the basis. That's what I've been doing with Small. And meanwhile, I've been very active in social media networks, mainly working with other teachers to try to learn about social media myself, and to help others learn, and to help us all learn from each other by using social media with one another. So in this way, we can learn about the affordances of social media. We learn what it feels like to be in a community of practice. There are some ineffable aspects to it. You can't really explain to people what it feels like, or what it the interactions that will take place there. So let's see. One of the first things I did in 1998, I started a student group called Writing for Webheads. 1998. That was I made a website, and the students sent me work to post there. I put their pictures up. They sent me pictures. This student group, one thing we had was a a plugin we put on our website for VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol, and we could talk to one another. And that was back in that time, in 2000 or so, between then and 2000, that was very unusual. So what happened was a lot of teachers got interested in this and started joining this group. And in 2002, we made a electronic village online. I made a session and to teach it to other teachers, to model for other teachers how to form communities of practice amongst ourselves. I've written a story of that in the Encyclopedia of English Language Teaching, which came out last year. And you can read that. There did not prevent me from putting it out on my website. So you can read that article if you want to learn more about webheads in action. And this is kind of a timeline of what Electronic Village Online began. I need to put links in here. I'll do that, if not, hopefully by the presentation tomorrow. 2002, Webheads in Action started, and then I started doing some other courses with EV Online. Basically, here's some other ways I've been interacting with teachers over the years using social media. So, meanwhile, I'd like to make an example of this community of practice that we started in 2002 called Webheads in Action, which has a Yahoo group. The Yahoo group still keeps messages. Let's see if I can get the Yahoo group here. I believe this is it. If you click on the link that's in that next slide, you'll see Anna Sora's message where she asked the group, she got all these replies, and she asked the group to help her find websites with free images. She knew about some, but she couldn't remember them. So she put this out. This is a group that's been active for 18 years. It's a community of practice. It's still helping teachers to help one another. And she got 8 replies in 6 days with 56 link suggestions. And if you browse over here, you can find all those link suggestions. They're all archived there. And she wrote the group and she said, "Dear Teresa, Fernanda, Mary, and Vance, what a wealth of suggestions to look through. Thank you so much. You are my memory and my crowd source. Hugs, Anna Sora." Now, this is an aspect of communities of practice where the point has been made often at this conference that the interaction in them is not always you'd say professional. It's all professional, but it's not. It's not always on topic. It's people in these communities care about one another, and virtual hugs are not at all unusual. And also writing each other about tribulations, things like that, successes. This is not unusual. So it's. There's a lot of care shown by people, members of communities of practice. Okay, so anyway, basically my contention in the book chapter I showed you earlier on small, where I mentioned small, is that teachers learning through connectivist frameworks, the ones like in Webheads in Action, connectivism is something I've explored more deeply. It's a lengthy topic, but basically it means expanding your network so that your networks intertwine and you have all the knowledge in your network just by virtue of being a part of that network and being connected to it. That's the main thing. So like Anna Sora illustrated that. She was knowledgeable before she wrote her email. Her knowledge existed in the network. All she had to do was tap into it and pull the knowledge out. That's what she did. So that's connectivism in action. So anyway, the idea is that by getting teachers familiar with these concepts and this way of doing things and how it feels and actually doing them, we empower them to introduce to students the methods that they should be learning about, because these are 21st century skills, how to collaborate with one another. In the research I reported in TESOL Atlanta, I did some research on teachers' attitudes toward social media themselves vis-a-vis their students. That's not a topic of this paper. I promised something different in this paper. That's one way I depart from that presentation. I promised that I would give examples from my own classroom through some things I've researched recently on how this works, how teachers learn, actually from my own experience and my own students, how I have learned to change my practice. In one of our Webheads in Actions online convergences, Etienne Wenger was one of the speakers, and he, one of our participants, Christina Costa, was talking to him, and he asked her, how did you know you were in a community of practice? And she said, when my practice changed. So that's how we, when your practice changes, then you realize that you're starting to incorporate some of the things you're learning from your community of practice. So how does this happen? I'm going to now go to other slideshows. I might have to reduce my screen share a little bit, because there we go. All right, that's fine, because it's ooh, there's some Zoom stuff over the top of this, and I don't want to cut off anything inadvertently. Okay, well, I have 4 minutes left. It's supposed to be a 30-minute presentation, and I have 4 minutes, so maybe I'll take a little bit more time to explain this, because I don't really think I'm going to have much time in the actual presentation itself. They're going to be cutting me off. So the one I'm giving tomorrow, I'm just going to have to point people to this, but I can possibly take another 5 minutes to describe what's here. So in order to show how participation in communities of practice informs your teaching, how your practice changes, I'm going back to a couple of presentations I've done recently. One of them was one I gave actually just last month to Sultan Qaboos University in Oman, but I did it virtually, so it's all recorded. And I believe that presentation is here. This is it. Okay, so it's in my, I just clicked on a link there in that slide, and it's about supporting student writing with the help of voice to text, something I've been doing a lot of work on. It was recorded. There's the presentation right there on YouTube, and it covers a lot of things, but one thing that it touches on is how I've been using Google Docs with my students, because I use Google Docs, Google Tools in my communities of practice, and I find them very useful, and they've become second nature to me, and I've been introducing them to my students. So there is one, oh, where is it here? Let's see. There's something, one thing that I showed these people was an example of how, if I play this, actually I've got it on YouTube, this link here in that blog post. If you play this, you can see what I was doing. I was in my office having just left a class, and the student was down in the classroom and in another class, and he started working on a paper I had given him feedback on in Google Docs. And so I'll just let that play for a minute. Okay, so I'm giving him feedback here, and as you can see his cursor there, he's sitting there, he's reading my feedback, and then he pops over onto the feedback to change something. I think I asked him, I thought he should make that and. You don't, or and, yes, and it doesn't matter, or it does not matter. Yeah, if your health condition is good or bad. So meanwhile, I'm going on here. I think I'm writing here. You can see I'm giving feedback there. So I've given feedback here. He's coming on that now, and he's reading my feedback, and he's making changes. Okay, so I'm unable to scroll here. I can't scroll in the video. It's just a video of what it's doing. So basically, we don't have to take time here in this presentation. You can go there. You can go to this video. Let me just stop it here. Okay, you can go there via this slideshow, via this blog post. Where are we here? We're back at the last slide in the presentation that you should have up on your device. And there's the blog post right there. So you play that, and it refers to, I refer in that to a presentation I did at Zayed University in 2018, 1 year ago. I'm going to show you that one because that one shows a little of the research that I was doing on my students. These are a particular set of students. They're very low-level students. Let me just put this in presentation mode if I can find it. Here we go. So I'll put this in presentation mode. And what I'm doing is I'm having the students write on paper because they like to write on paper. And they don't write much. I've asked them to write 100 words against this prompt. And this student wrote, "In all my life, the extreme sport which I have in the earth and the most popular is soccer. When you go to the goal, you will to attack, to anyone to come in front of you. But if the ball to other side, you will hunt to get it." That is brilliant stuff. The student is not very fluent, or he wasn't very comfortable with writing that out. He only wrote 50 words out of 100. But what I did is I took his paper and I opened Google Docs, and he had shared a document with me. So I opened that document, a blank document, and I started speaking into my iPad. You can do this on a mobile phone too. In the presentation that I gave at Sultan Qaboos University, I demonstrated this on a mobile phone. So you click on the sound icon, and then you can speak. You can just read what the student wrote there and get a machine readable version of it. So, and when I read these back to the students, I read them in correct English. In all my life, the extreme sport which I love the most on earth and which is most popular is soccer. When you approach the goal, you will attack anyone who gets in your way. But if the ball goes to the other side, you will hunt to get it. So I maintained his ideas, but I put them in correct English. The idea is that the student doesn't have to cut through a lot of, I mean, the first 50 words he's written, we're looking for 100 words. So he's only halfway there. I don't want him bogged down in the mud of trying to sort out where his mistakes are. Just, okay, here are your mistakes. But you carry on now. I want you to revise now. So, and to help him do this, I print this on a piece of paper, and then I give him feedback on that paper. So the feedback is just scratched there. One of the reasons for my technique is that I've got a lot of this work to get through every day. So I had 3 writing classes, and I was probably getting 10 or 12 writings from each class. So at the end of the day, I'd have 35 of them. So I had to do something that would keep my sanity. So what he did, he took my feedback, and then he wrote, and using the Google document, he expanded it. He got it to 179 words. So just following on my oh, and by the way, I wanted 100 words on the first draft. We're shooting for 250 words on the exam. So basically, you can see this if you're interested. I'm going to cut out of this now. We're 5 minutes over. They'll have kicked me off 5 minutes ago when I actually give this in at the conference. So let's see where we are in my presentation. So, well, basically, I'm back here. So If you want to learn more about that research, you can click on these two links, and that research will take you in, that will take you to slides where the research is presented in greater detail. Okay, and just another word about what I do with Google Docs. One nice thing about Google Docs is when you use it with students, you actually maintain files. They're all there. Everything. These were from 2014. Probably shouldn't be showing you this with their names, but this is one student's writing. It's just an idea of what I. Well, it's taking a little time to come to res here, but anyway, basically this is the student wrote this, and I would, let's see here, I wanted to write in a town named, so he didn't go and make any corrections, but here I was hitting his mistakes, and like this one, subject verb do not agree. I think he might have changed that because they do agree now. Oh no, in the past the houses were smaller. Yes, so he changed that. So he changed some of these things, but not all of them. But anyway, basically that's how I would interact with my students back in those back in 2014. Okay, so what have we done? Let me see. How am I going to close this presentation when I give it? I don't know. I don't really have anything. I think what I'll do is I'll just remind those present that you can get the presentation online. I'm going to, hopefully this recording comes out, and I'll be able to embed that in the presentation, probably at the end. You can see this presentation here, and I'll record it while I'm giving it at the conference tomorrow, and I'm feeling fairly confident. I've been talking 36 minutes now, so it should go well tomorrow. I'm quite confident that it will. Okay, so this is a presentation about thinking small, a case for social media assisted language learning. This is Vance Stevens, and this is the 18th of April 2019. And this is all going to become Learning Together episode 1 to 409. So I didn't really show you Learning Together. Learning Together is my podcast series. And this is the 19th of April, tomorrow. This is what I'm going to be doing. I've announced it in my Learning Together. So I've explained to colleagues what I'm going to do and where I'll be broadcasting it. I've given them links to the slides and to the tiny URL, and this is the time that they can meet me. And I've made announcements in these various spaces here. For example, Learning Together. Let's go ahead and click there. This is I've made similar announcements to all these Facebook groups. Learning Together is a Facebook group. It looks like it's going to take a little while to come up. I've probably got too many tabs open. But in any event, there it is. Okay, so this is the announcement. No one has responded to this one. But basically, this is the announcement. So when people in the group can see, I'm not sure how many people are in this group. Members, let's see, how many members do we have? I'm not sure. Not enough. We have several. Okay, so I have several such groups. So Learning Together has an archive. If you go to the sidebar, the archive listing, if you click there, you can see this. So you can see the 400th episode, for example, and you can search there and you can find anybody who's presented. It's all listed here. Everything going back to, that's 2018, 17, or going back to 2010. That's when we started. Okay, and then all those posts point to something in Learning Together. So if I just click on one, how about here's one with my wife, Bobby. Okay, so open a new tab, and that takes us to that event, which looks like it was a Minecraft event. Again, the computer's a little bit slow. Okay, so here there's a YouTube video, and you can play that video and you can see what we did, hear what we did, and get some show notes about it. And all of those episodes are the same, so there are 400 and will be 409 of them tomorrow. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Okay, and I'll leave people with this on the board. Bye for now. Bye in a minute. I'm stopping the share now. The share is stopped. Okay, there we are. That's me signing off. And I'm going to stop the recording. If I can find where to stop it. Ah, here it is, recording. Stop the recording. Okay, bye. Maybe see you tomorrow. It says, do I want to stop it? Yes, I do.